Let me illustrate how you can summarize the data sets in R. So in this case, I'm loading this data set, which is a data set of an insurer that records how many claims someone has in a given year. So you see this last column here. Every line is a policyholder, and for example, the first policyholder has 0 claims, and this fourth policyholder had 1 claim. The variable expo is the exposure. It records what is the time frame we are following this policyholder. So you see it's all 1, so it means that we look over 1 year, we look at our policyholder and we say in this year he or she had 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 claims. We have different variables that we can use to predict how many claims someone will have in the future. So my column claims, that is my response variable, the variable that I want to predict. All the other variables are my predictors. This will help me to understand what determines how many claims someone will have. For example, we have the age, which is a numerical positive value, but we have also a variable gender, which is a categorical variable. It can take only values F or M, male or female. We have region, and the region is indicated by a number, but of course the numbers 1, 2, 3 and so on indicating the region. They are just indicating what region do we have. It's not that region 1 is close to region 2 than it is to region 3. Right? So these are also categorical variables where each category is indicated not with a letter like gender, but with a number. We have like mileage. That's a variable that is a continuous variable indicating how far, how much someone drives. We have the color, which is again a categorical variable, the speed, and urban, which indicates like if you are living in a more urban or a more rural region. We're going to look at the different variables separately. So for example, we can make a summary of the variables in our data set. So we apply the function summary, and then for example, you see here for age, we see the minimum and the maximum value, and if I take the difference, I get the range. So the range is 19 minus 20, is 70 years. I have my quantiles. I have my 25% quantile. I have my 50% quantile, this is the median, and my 75%. So the Q1, the Q3 can be used to get the interquartile range. And I have here a mean. So in this case, for the age, you see that the median and the mean are close to each other. It's 44, 46.5. That gives me the center. Of course, for a categorical variable like gender, you don't have a mean or a quantile. You only have the number of males and females in your data set. For a variable like region, I can calculate the minimum and maximum and mean, but of course it's not very useful because the 1 and the 2, they only indicate the regions, and it doesn't make sense to add or subtract regions. So although R tells you this is the summary of my variable region, I cannot use this because the 1, the 2, the 3, the numbers that I use to indicate my region, they are not like numerical values, they are categorical. This is a categorical variable, so the numbers indicate different categories. For a variable like claims, claims is the number of claims someone has in a policy year, so it can be 0 claims, 1 claim, 2 claims. In this case, you also see that the summary is not very useful because you see a lot of zeros. You have a data set where most people have 0 claims, some people have 1 claim, 2 claims, and very few have more than 2 claims. So in this case, the summary doesn't really reveal the structure of that variable. To understand the data set a bit better, I can try to visualize the data using plots. So what I do here is I will look, similar as on the previous slide, I will look at the variables separately. Just picking out one variable and trying to understand how it looks by making figures. So what we do is we use the ggplot function in R, which is a package that gives you a very powerful tool to create nice graphs. And I advise you to practice a bit with ggplot, because the syntax to create plots in ggplot is very particular. So first you have to make sure that you have installed ggplot and that you call the library ggplot. And then you have always start with what we call a base layer. So we use the function ggplot. We tell the function, well, this is the data set that you use. It's our insurance data set. And our static variables, our variables that we will use in our plots, in this example, is the variable mileage. So I'm going to create a base layer telling, well, I'm going to use this data set and this variable to plot. And now I have to add something to this base layer. I have to add layers. For example, my base layer I stored in P, and I can say I'm going to create, using this base layer, I'm going to create a histogram. So then I have to add, so plus this histogram function. But maybe you want to make a box plot, and then you have to add to P a box plot. So that is how a ggplot works. So you start with the base layer, and then you add, for example, a histogram. But maybe if you have your histogram, you can add lines to your histogram. It's another layer you add to your plot. Maybe you want to add a title. It's again another layer to your plot. So you always have base layer plus something else, plus something else. And that's how you build your complete plot. So for example, for the variable mileage, I have my base layer P. So I have called ggplot and said I'm going to plot from the data set with the insurance data, I'm going to plot the mileage variable. I want to create a histogram, so I add the first layer, geom histogram. I say to the histogram, I want to have 20 bins, and I want to have black bars that are filled in gray. So that will create a histogram. And you see here, I only have to tell R that I want to create a histogram from the base layer P. R already knows I'm going to use that data set, this variable. Then I have my histogram, so that's basically this line. I want to add something else. I want to add a vertical line indicating the mean and the first and third quartile. So I have my first layer, P, my base layer. Then I add a second layer, which is the histogram. Then I add another layer, which is a vertical line, V line, where my intercept, where I touch the x-axis, is, for example, the mean of mileage. And I want to have a blue line that is in dashed. I add another layer, another vertical line, but now I use the quantile at level 0.25, the first quartile. And then I add another vertical line, so another layer, but now I take the third quartile, it's a quantile at level 75%. So it means I have my base layer that tells me this is the data that I want to use. Then I build the histogram, and then I add three vertical lines, the mean, the first and the third quartile. And then lastly, I add another layer, which is the title that I want to put on top of the histogram. And if I run that code, I get this picture. I have the histogram in black with filling in gray. I have my mean in the middle, a blue dashed vertical line, and then I have my Q3 and my Q1. And if I have the Q1 and the Q3, I can, for example, calculate the interquartile range. I also add the last layer, which is here, the title of the histogram.